Imagine building and deploying web applications without worrying about servers or operating systems. That's the power of Azure App Service. Let's explore it together. Welcome to this tutorial about Azure App Service. In this tutorial, you will learn about Azure App Service, its key features and benefits, use cases, how it works, and I will take you through a demonstration on creating and managing the Azure App Services in Azure Cloud. My name is Navneet Kumar. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and the founder of TrainCrest Technologies. The learning objectives of this tutorial are understanding the Azure App Services, key features and benefits, how it works, different components that are involved in it, use cases for Azure App Services. Then finally, I will take you through a demo on creating and managing Azure App Services. Azure App Service is a platform as a service offering from Microsoft that allows you to build, deploy, and scale the web applications, mobile backends, and RESTful APIs. That too without managing the underlying infrastructure. It is like renting a fully furnished apartment where you only need to bring your belongings, which are your codes, and focus on your application's logic instead of spending your time on managing the servers, their patching, and security. Coming to the key features and benefits of Azure App Service, number one is fully managed platform. Azure handles the infrastructure, operating system, runtime, and patching that allows you to concentrate on your application's development and innovations. Number two is multiple language support. You can build applications using your preferred languages like .NET, Node.js, Python, Java, PHP, or Ruby. Next is scalability. Automatically scale your applications up or down or in or out based on traffic to handle varying workloads requirements. Scalability can be a very key component into optimizing the cost for running your applications, especially your web applications or web portals. High availability is another advantage. It ensures your application is always accessible with built-in redundancy and the load balancing. Next is continuous integration and continuous deployment. You can easily integrate the Azure App Service with tools like GitHub, Azure DevOps, or Jenkins for automated deployments. Next is security. You can take benefit from the built-in security features like SSL or TLS, authentication, and authorization. Next is cost effective. You pay only for the resources that you use. This is the flexible pricing option offered by Microsoft's platform as service offerings. After completing or discussing the key features and benefits, let's talk about the components and how it works. For Azure App Services to work with, you need a pricing card. How will you pay for the Azure App Services? There are different plans that you can opt for based on your requirements of compute or features. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to create an app service plan. The next thing is that you create the app service instance. In this app service instance, you deploy your code to the selected plan. After that, you configure the settings. You put the custom domains to your application, SSL certificates, environment variables, or other configuration settings like your database connections, etc. Finally, you can do the day-to-day management for scaling or managing these applications. You can monitor your application's performance and scale the resources as per the requirement. If I talk about the common use cases of Azure App Services, number one is web applications. These are www applications. These are actually dynamic websites and web portals that you can have for your applications front end. You can have mobile backends as well. You can develop APIs to power mobile and IoT applications. Next is RESTful APIs. So you can build and host the APIs for integration with other systems in Azure App Services. Finally, serverless functions. These serverless functions use consumption-based model. Per minute compute you need to pay for. This helps into micro billing and optimizing the cost. So event-based applications can be hosted and these events can trigger the function application. So it executes the code without managing the servers. That is why we call it serverless. Azure Function or Azure Logic App are the part of the Azure App Services that come under the serverless applications. Let me take you through a demonstration where I will show you how to create and manage the Azure App Services. For this, I will move to the Azure portal and click on the hamburger icon on the left and will start creating a resource. In this, I will choose the web app, will click create to create the web application. I can create the app service plan in advance, or I can also decide the app service plan during the creation of app service. Here you will see there is an option to choose the app service plan. To create the web app, you need to define your subscription, your Azure account, where you want to host this application. You need to provide the container. This is app service RG, where I will host this. This is the domain name that you need to provide. The host name, the domain name it will use is .azurewebsites.net automatically. For an instance, this is my first web app, and it might not be a unique name. So to make it unique, let's say I put 088 or some number and then .azurewebsites.net. It has also appended some number over here to make it unique. Or if you want to provide a unique name on this domain, then you can use it without that. So this thing is also in preview. And why it is required? Because many times it becomes difficult to put a unique name over here on this domain. This host name of this website need to be unique on this domain. Later, of course, you will be adding the custom domain name on your website. Then you want to publish this application as a code, or you want to use the Azure Container application or static web app. So you want to use the code, then you will choose the runtime, that which runtime you will be using, maybe .NET, maybe ASP.NET. So .NET Core, if you want to go with, you can choose the version and you can decide the operating system platform, whether Windows or Linux, because .NET Core you can also use the Linux platform, so that is available. But if you choose ASP.NET, then you can only go with Windows. Apart from that, you have Java, you have Node.js, PHP, Python. So you will choose your runtime to host this application as per your preferred language. Then you will choose the region where will you host it, depending on the user base where from the users will be connecting, and to offer them better performance with low latency, keep this application to the nearby location of the users. Else, if your application is to be globally distributed and accessed globally, then you can use the front door as your front door and the content delivery network CDN to cache the static content. I have done a video on front door and CDN. Please do watch that video in networking series of Azure. I have done Azure front door and CDN video where I have shown you that how it can accelerate the performance of your application when it is accessed globally. Then you can choose the plan over here. This is the app service plan. You can create the app service plan. So this is standard plan that is here right now. You can click on create new app service plan and you can define the name for this plan. and then you can choose the plan over here. You can see the app service plan options, what different options are there, be it standard or premium tiers you want to go with. You will decide based on the computing requirement like Azure compute unit and virtual CPUs, the memory, the remote storage, the scaling features, SLA that you will be getting, and then cost per hour and cost per month. Based on these resources you can choose that, or based on the features you can decide. So these are the features you want to add: the custom domain name. So on free tier or shared D1 tier you cannot add the custom domain, as you see. You will have to have used that Azure websites.net domain. So these features are not available, and then there are features whatever available, they have been mentioned in this list. So depending on that, you will choose the particular plan, and then you will create this application. Right now I'm on this standard S1 tier that allows me to use the custom domain name. I can have the rules. I can have this compute, daily backup, staging slots, and if you want to see the compute over here, so you can see that you will be getting 100 ACUs, 1.75 gig of memory. If you want to improve that, then you can do this, or you can scale it up later on also based on your requirements. So this is a kind of pricing card that's telling you that okay, you will be getting this much of features in this plan. So the pricing card selection will be done over here in this app service plan. It tells you that per hour cost is this and per month cost per instance is this. Depending on number of instances you will be charged. Suppose you do the scale out based on the workload requirements, then you will be charged per instance. Then you can define the database. You can create and associate the database connection strings here right now, or you can ignore it and later you can do that as well. Continuous deployment, whether you want to enable it, so you can enable, and then you can define your Azure DevOps organization and your repository and the branch of the code. The master branch basically we use to build the applications where we have the code, or any particular branch, and then you can publish the application through the DevOps tools. Right now I'll keep it disabled, and then we have the authentication settings, so we can enable the basic authentication if we want, and currently the basic authentication is also disabled. I will configure these settings later on. I want to enable the public access. Yes, if this is going to host your internal websites, then you can turn it off, and then enable network injection, so you can also decide that whether you want the network injection or not. So this is currently turned off. Then monitor and secure this application. This is how you enable the application insight on your application, so that you can get the telemetry data of this application, the server response time, any request that has been failed, the server failed to serve. So you can get that information about the applications. Then you can provide the tag for billing and for finding the resources effectively in the Azure. So you will provide this tag. For instance, this is for project training, and then you will finally review and create. It will validate all your parameters, that whether you qualify all the requirements or not, and then you click on create. This is how you can deploy a web application in Azure. Web application is one type of app service. Basically, Azure App Service consolidates different types of applications like I discussed earlier. So these can be the RESTful APIs, mobile backends, or the function apps, logic apps. All of these different types of application types come under the Azure App Services. Well, this web application is deployed. Now let's manage this web application. I will go to the web app, where in the overview blade we see the basic settings of this application, that the resource group that it is stored in, the status of the application is up and running. If you want to browse this application, you can click on browse button, and you see that the starting HTML page has come up over here. Then you can stop this, you can restart it, you can delete this application, you can download the published profile to publish it, you can reset the published profile as well, you can share to mobile also. Then some other parameters that you see here is the default domain, the app service plan, the operating system platform that has been selected, health check is not configured yet. Now, if you look into the domains, then it is using this default domain, that is .azurewebsites.net, and this is the host name of my application. I can add a custom domain. The activity log shows you that whatever the activities have been performed related to the management operations. You can delegate access to manage this application. So on the control plane of this application, to manage the attributes or manage the application settings, you can delegate access to others. You can see the tags, or you can put the tags over here. Let us jump to the deployment over here, that what options are there for the deployment. For the deployment, you have first of all the deployment slots. You can have multiple deployment slots for an application. Each deployment slot is an environment where the application runs separately. You can have multiple environments to preview your application before you release a new version of application to the production. Before you take the risk with your users in production, you want to preview that, and you want to do a private preview or public preview of your application, then you need different environments. So you can do that. It's not only for previewing purpose, but it is also for A/B testing or for canary release. So when you want to choose the different deployment patterns for deploying your applications, you can use these deployment slots. The deployment slots allow you to release a new version of applications without any downtime as well. Now, based on your plan that you have selected, if it supports the app service slots, then you can add a slot out there. There are up to 30 app service slots supported depending on the plan that you have selected. Now, I will provide this slot a name. So let's say this is going to be my stage 1. I will be having multiple stages of my app. So it has automatically appended this stage 1 before the name of the domain of this website, and then and in fact after the name of the host that I provided for this. I can clone the configuration from my main website slot, and I can add a slot this way. So we can do a swap between the two slots with this very easily without any downtime. So we can have multiple versions of the application running, and for the beta versions of your applications or some changes you have done, you can release them for specific set of users. You can distribute the premium features to specific users or your prime customers first. So based on that, you can do it. This is in the blue color, a green color over here. So this is actually blue green deployment. So this is your production slot, and this is your staging slot. If you access this green slot, so this is the URL of your website, which is my first web app, and then 088.azurewebsites.net. Whereas the blue slot will have a different URL that you have already seen, that it will append that name, like this is stage 1 that I added. And if I browse for this, this is my staging slot. Now suppose I want to do the changes into my application. So I will do that change, let's say through the development tool over here and through this app service editor. So I can launch the app service editor and edit this application directly in the browser. So I get the access to this applications code, and I can directly modify it from here, or else I can develop the application in my IDE tools, and then I can publish that application depending on the requirement of the slot, be it a staging slot or my green deployment slot, the production slot. So this launches this app service editor, and I go to this hosting start HTML page, and I put an HTML page over here. So I open the HTML tag, and I close this HTML tag there. And then inside this, I put a header. Let's say this header 1, and this is h1, and I close this h1. We have predefined tags in HTML. So hi there, this is the new version of application. And you will do this, you will notice that this change has been done to this staging slot. So if I refresh this, I can see this new code. Hi there, this is the new version of the application. If you see the older version, So the main slot, actually the green one, the production one, so it is still the same page, the starting HTML page. Now once I have tested this, I have previewed this, and now I want to swap it to this production slot, then all I need to do is I need to go to my app service slots. I can go back to my app service. These are the slots. There is a button that you see to swap. Swapping will do the 100% swap to this slot. So the code from blue will be swapped with green, and green will go to the blue. So this is 100% swap for all your customers. This is called blue green deployment or A/B testing. And when you do this swapping, you will notice that there is no downtime, and without any downtime, you get the new code published to your application. So the application is working. It will take a minute or two to do this swapping. And meanwhile, it is going on. I'll show you that there is no downtime to your application. The application's older version is running while the newer code will be swapped shortly. And it will do reverse. I mean, this code of the green slot will go to the blue. So if I refresh this code has come over here, and it should have a different code over here. It might get it from the cache as well, or let me refresh it. So now you see this is the code available in this. So it has been swapped. So the swap is actually with the 100% traffic. And if you want to return it back, then you can do the swap once again between these two slots. And there we go. If you want to understand that when you do a swapping, so what will swap and what will stick with this, maybe the domain name, let's say, because the domain names will not change, right? So I will share the link in the description for more details, where you will see the MS Learn documentation for a complete deep dive about it, that uh, what will swap and what will not swap with the applications slots. So the benefit of using the deployment slot is that without any downtime, we get the applications released, the new version released to this. Here I refresh this once again, and I got that previous code back to this slot, and this one I got over here. If I don't want to take the risk with all my users, or I do not want to take risk with 100% business, so what I can do is I can go with canary release. So with canary release, I can define the small number of uh, percent of the traffic that will go to the blue slot, rest will go to the green. So I can put over here 1%, let's say. So 99% traffic will be going here, and 1% users will be redirected to this. So that is how you are not taking that much of risk. Here I can put it, let's say 50-50, so that I can do the testing for this. And this time, if I go to the Azure App Service and I refresh it, this production slot, so I can see this here. And if I go to the incognito window and access it, I may see this page, or I may see the other page as well, because 50% traffic will go to the blue slot as well. So here I must close this browser and clear the cache of this, or what I can do is I can launch a different browser to test it altogether, because the browser may use the cache and can provide you the code from the cache. So I access it over here. This also shows you the same page. What I'm expecting is that some of the traffic will be going to the blue slot. Anyways, this is how we can do the canary release, where we can define the percentage, and then we gradually improve the number of percentage, and then finally we can do a swap between the two slots. So this is the app service slot. How do we use that? There we go. Now next is the deployment center, where you decide that how will you do the deployment to the application service, which IDE tool you're going to use. Either you're going to use the Azure DevOps services, or you're going to use the traditional FTP deployment. For an instance, you want to do the traditional FTP deployment. So the FTP authentication is by default disabled for your applications, because it is considered as a less secure method, or a traditional or conventional method to do the deployment. So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to enable this authentication by making the changes to this configuration of the application. So you need to go to the configuration of the applications under the settings, and from the configurations you need to enable that FTP authentication on. So here you will notice here that FTP basic authentication is actually turned off. So you need to turn it on first of all, and then you will save it over here. You will continue, and then from the deployment center you can take the FTP username and the password and FTP endpoint, and from the FTP clients like FileZilla or any client that you use to publish your applications, you can use these credentials. So FTP username and password you can generate, or you can define it under the user scope as well. So these are the FTP credentials. But if you want to use the DevOps, then you can choose the source where, I mean, source code where your source is. So the code is, this code can be in GitHub, Bitbucket, local Git, or Azure repository. You must be using some build services also over there. So for an instance, you're using Azure repo along with the Azure pipeline, Azure DevOps pipeline, or you're using GitHub Actions to build this application, or with Bitbucket, local Git, you're using Jenkins or something. So you can choose that, like this is your source. Then SCM basic authentication is also disabled. You need to enable that if you're going to use it. Then you need to define your organization, your project, your repository, and the branch of that code that you want to use to publish it. So this is how you can choose the deployment options and integrate with the DevOps tools to uh, release the application, where when you want the continuous integration, so automatically building the applications and then automatically releasing the applications also based on the predefined workflows, or known as pipelines in Azure DevOps especially. So that we can do here. So these are the options for the deployment that you can choose from. Then we have the performance load testing. We have a load tester tool where we can send some stress or the load to the application, and applications load testing can be done through this. We have settings to set up the environment variables, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, that we have the option to customize the applications environment variables, configuration settings we can do. So we have app settings that we can do, where we can define the variables, we can define the connection strings also over there. So our application will be connecting to some database or some connection strings that we want to define here. So we can add the connection strings to the variables, and then we can do the configuration over here for our application settings. So if I go to the configuration, then here is the stack, the version that I want to use, and then the platform 32 or 64 bit, and then managed pipeline version is integrated or classic way you want to go with. SCM, you will have to turn it on in case you're going to use that version control system. Then HTTP version, HTTP to proxy, WebSocket you want to use, always on, session affinity, HTTPS only settings, and then minimum inbound TLS version. So these are some settings that you will be doing. Incoming client certificates for that, so whether it is required or allow, or it is optional, or it will ignore that. Application is not authenticating anyone, it is anonymously available. As you have seen, the application was anonymously available, there was no authentication required. But you can add the identity provider like Microsoft's Entra ID, or you can use LinkedIn, Facebook, or other identity providers like social media identity providers, Twitter, Google, GitHub, Facebook, Apple. So different identity providers are there, and you can integrate it with that. So when you access the application, you will have to authenticate. So if you want to define the authorization rules, your website is going to have some confidential data, or based on the users logins, you want to provide the access to the application, then you can integrate it with the Entra ID. The application will be registered with that, and other social media identity providers also you can use. So at the end, you are adding the identity provider here. We have application insights, where from we can see the applications insight. We will have to use the application insight agent to instrument it to the application. We have to add that agent to the application, and then that agent will collect the data and send it to this application insight, and where we can generate the dashboards and see that. I can assign an identity, the user assigned or system assigned identity I can assign to this under the security context of which this application will run and will access the resources. I can back up this application, so I can define the backup frequency for this, how frequently I want to back up. Every 1 hour it is configured as of now. You can configure the custom backup settings from here, or you can restore it from previous point in time. You want to add a custom domain on this, then you can add the custom domain over here. So for adding that custom domain, all you need to do is you need to choose that whether you are using the app service domain, which is actually Microsoft. Through Microsoft portal, you purchase the app service domain. The domain you purchase from GoDaddy, but it is through the Azure portal. Then all other domain services you are using, then you can choose that. You will enter the domain name. So for an instance, my company name is contoso.com, so I will provide that name, contoso.com. Then I will have to prove this that the domain belongs to me by creating these records. So I will create a record over there in that contoso.com DNS zone and a text record with this value. So this text record will validate that okay, this domain belongs to me. Then I will add the certificate for that, because right now the application is SSL protected using this Azure Websites.net SSL certificate. So this certificate is actually being issued to that Azure Websites.net, and it's a wildcard certificate that Microsoft is providing. So if you look for this certificate is star.azurewebsites.net. So because I'm on Microsoft's domain right now, so that is why it is SSL protected. But when you will add your custom domain, then you need a certificate for that. Then you choose that whether you need SNI or IP based SSL. So this is how you're going to add a custom domain to your application. Then you add the certificates to your application. You can have managed certificate. You can bring your own PFX files with the private key or with the public key only, that canonical encode reader format file, the CER file. You can decide the networking over here, that whether this networking will be with the public IP that was configured earlier over there. Then you can check the network related settings over here. Then you can scale up. You can change the app service plan for this application. Remember, this will require a downtime. So take a maintenance window and then change this app service plan. So suppose I want to move from the S2 to S3, then I will get this much of compute, 7 gig of memory, and then it will be this much of cost. I'll be getting 3.9.5 the high availability. So this is how I can scale up. Scaling out is increasing the instances instead of the size of the app service plan. So here I can scale out by defining the number of instances that I want to deploy, and we can deploy up to 30 instances depending on the app service plan we have selected. So we can scale out how many have been applied or allowed in this S3. So you will see that only 10 are available. You can scale out up to 10 instances. It will be your same app service plan where you will be charged. Then you can define some web jobs, MySQL settings, service connectors. So we have the settings to configure the web jobs or the database settings we can do on our app service. Here we have the development tools. We can clone the application. We can launch the console. So this console is actually provided to you through Kudu, and you use this console for troubleshooting your application. So this is the dub root that I have got right now, and if I do dir or ls over here, so this is the hosting start HTML file that I have right now over here. So I can access this console, and I can use advanced tools to connect to this. Then app service editor, I recently shown you that I can modify the code of my application within the browser instead of loading the code to the IDE. Then API connections, I can manage the API or cross origin resource sharing if I am doing, so that I can define. Monitoring, we can set up the alerts, metrics, log analytics. We can do advisor recommendations. We can apply for cost or for performance or for operational excellence and security. Kudu service is there. So through this Kudu, you can get into the environment. You can get into the debug console either through command shell or through PowerShell tool. You can check the processor explorer to see the processes. Different tools are also there that you can use. So this is backed by this Kudu engine, and that lets you enter to this applications console to manage it through PowerShell or through the CMD, traditional command line tool, for debugging this application. So you can look into the entire directory or the structure of this application and do the management of it using the Kudu. So this is there. And we can configure the diagnostic settings to send the resource logs to different locations. So here we can add the diagnostic settings to send the logs of this resource to the log analytics workspace for analytics purpose, for storage account to keep them archived for longer duration, for event hub to send them to the non-Azure telemetry systems, non-Microsoft telemetry systems, send to partner solutions that you also can decide. You also need to decide the logs that you want to send and then give it a friendly name over here. So that's how you can do the diagnostic settings to send these resource logs, formerly known as diagnostic logs, to the uh, repository or to a field where you want to store them. Then you can define the automation tasks for this, or you can export this template of this application. So with this demonstration, you have seen that how easy it is to deploy an application into the Azure, and you need not to worry about the management of servers, network, storage, or many other components. Storage, of course, you can add the storage accounts for additional storage that you require for your application. uh, but the servers, their patching, their operating system licensing, or their compliance, security, and many more things have been offloaded to Microsoft. Microsoft will be managing that underlying platform for this application. All you need to focus on is your application and application code, and publish it and use that application. So this is what benefit of cloud services is, that we need not to manage the infrastructure. This is the Azure App Service. The key takeaway is that we get a fully managed platform to host our applications, be it .NET, Java, PHP, Python application. Uh, we get the scalability, we get the high availability with this. Like with this plan, you have seen that we get 3.9.5 of high availability. So these are highly available. It supports the integration with the CI/CD tools, Azure DevOps, Jenkins, or any other tool that you are using, Bitbucket, GitHub. So it supports that. Uh, and you can do the backup to the cloud. You can maintain the configuration settings of this. You can add the custom domains and the certificates of your requirement. For security, you can add the certificates, SSL TLS certificates that are supported. Configuration settings are there, so you have adequate number of parameters to set the configuration of this application. Deployment slot was one another feature that allows you to have multiple slots for your application, so that you can do A/B testing or blue-green deployment or canary release kind of deployment, or deployment patterns you can choose. So that's all about the Azure App Services. I hope this tutorial was informative to you. Thanks for watching this video, and do like this video and subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And let me know in the comment section if you have any doubts or questions, or you want me to do a video on a particular topic or a service in Azure. Thank you.